Like Colombians are
Hmm.
big fans of USA.
Yeah.
I wish I was born in the USA, because I want that privilege. It's true. A lot of people say that. And so I think they're still blinded by the facade of the US just being this indestructible country where nothing can go wrong in terms of money and stuff. And so that's the barrier that I'm really trying to break, because being here in the United States, I see something that's completely different, where we're actually kind of fragile.
Hmm.
We're actually ruining our country from internally because we keep printing this money and debasing our currency. And the American dream that we migrated to here thinking that we were coming to here, it's starting to disappear. And people don't realize that.
Today we have a special guest. In a massive, vast sea of non-playable characters, we have a truly special and unique playable character here today that you're not going to want to miss. Someone who is going to have a story to tell you that I think you're going to enjoy, and it's going to spark some emotion inside of you, and it's going to probably help many resonate with their own story, but hopefully how they can better share their story to orange pill others. We have Camila Campton, who is the head of social media at Swan Bitcoin, and she's one of the sweetest people. I don't think I've met her in real life yet. I've only been able to communicate with her numerous times in spaces and online, but her story is incredible and helps a lot with Pacific Bitcoin running that and the phenomenal festival they have there. But she's so smart, and just to think, as you're going to see here, that really in the last 3 years, she was inadvertently orange pilled by her husband, and is now within 6 months was working at Swan, and the crazy story she shares there, how that happened, and really a source of incredible knowledge of Bitcoin just in 3 years. So you see how fast the rise can go from someone who wasn't in that space, wasn't in the financial space, investing at all, to being extremely orange pilled and knowing more than vast majority of the world about Bitcoin, the sound money, freedom, inflation, deflation, the economy, etc. She's a true source of inspiration, having immigrated from Colombia to America as a child and going through that journey. We talk about that. We talk about immigration, orange pilling family members, what she does at Swan Bitcoin, obviously, how people can be better content creators, and how we can move the mission of sound money forward and move the message and the mission of Bitcoin forward. She's an incredible, sweet person, and it's my joy, my pleasure to have her share her story here today. She was very generous with her time. Miss Camila Campton. Enjoy. Miss Camila Campton. Trying to get it right. I was
Yes.
practicing off screen. How did I do?
Pretty good.
Decent. Camila
Camila.
Campton. Camila.
Yeah,
So thank you
that's
so much for
perfect.
joining us today. Yeah, no,
Yeah.
I always put in a little intro on the beginning and end, talk about playable characters, talk about people that can think clearly, or just critically think in general, and just kind of, you have a unique story, which I would love for you to share, and how you ended up at Swan. And from what I know, you were orange pilled by your husband, I believe, and
Mm-hmm.
I would love you to kind of walk through that, because I think the stories of, I like going through people's stories just because they're very unique, but it can trigger people probably the easiest in seeing things in their own lives. So like, oh wow. So I think it's super important to do that, whether it's just a random pleb or it's Michael Saylor. I think those stories are so important, and everyone in between, which is all of us. So thank you for joining us today, and just appreciate you having me here.
Yeah, no, thank you for having me. And I absolutely agree with you. You just never know how your story is going to touch someone. So as Bitcoiners, we have to share our story as much as we can. And they are all very unique. And I find mine pretty hilarious. And it's just the way I got here, it still blows my mind 3 years later. So how I got orange pilled is actually really funny. It all started in 2020, right? A whole bunch of Bitcoiners' journey started in 2020 when
Wow.
the crash was happening, lockdowns. I was in my own little world, but my husband, who was my fiance at the time, was actually very much into trying to figure out what was going on. He was doing commercial real estate at the time. And in his head, he just said, why aren't things crashing? Like, this does not make any sense. What's going on? He started going into Twitter. He actually went on Twitter just to see what he should be investing in. So he was actually a gold bug and would follow a whole bunch of gold bug old people. I don't know who he followed. Anyway, so he was looking through one of the posts and then reading through the comments of one of these gold bug posts. And there was a random pleb who was just like, don't buy gold. Gold is a shit coin. Buy Bitcoin. And that comment, as toxic as it is, grabbed his attention. He said, wait a second, Bitcoin, I've heard about Bitcoin. He knew about it since 2017, but didn't really go down the rabbit hole. And so he started to go down the Bitcoin rabbit hole. Meanwhile, I had no idea this was happening. I was pretty much the person that would think, if I work really hard, I'm going to save my money and this is going to help me in the future, not realizing that inflation was stealing my money. So we didn't live together at the time, but then we got married middle of the pandemic. We moved to a brand new city. And then I realized how intrigued he was by Bitcoin, because he would wake up and listen to a Bitcoin podcast. We would go on a car ride. He would be like, hey, babe, can we listen to a Bitcoin podcast? I'll be like, sure, why not? You know, not really understanding anything, especially since he would put on Stefan Livera and it was all very technical over my head. He would mention Sailor and MicroStrategy. I have no idea who those companies are, but he would just be excited about the fact that, you know, Sailor was starting to talk about Bitcoin, a company was starting to buy Bitcoin. He was hyped. And I was just like, okay, this is great. This is, you know, this is your thing. It's not really my thing. I don't understand it, which is fine. I'm glad that you're happy. And I feel like a lot. Yeah, I support you even though I don't understand. And he did tell me, oh, you should read the Bitcoin Standard at one point, but I just didn't pay attention. I was trying to figure out what I was going to do with my life, because since we did move to a new city, I had no job. Everything was still locked down. Yeah. And I had no idea what I was going to do. He had secured a job. I hadn't. So my mind was like, why am I going to read the Bitcoin Standard? I have more important things to focus on. Mm-hmm. So Thanksgiving comes of 2020. We go to his parents' house for Thanksgiving. We fly over. And he's just talking about it with his dad, back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. And his dad would just ask very good questions. And I saw that he was actually really smart when it came to Bitcoin and really understood it. And I think he was trying to orange pill his dad, but he ended up orange pilling me instead, where I'm the one that got super intrigued. And so after Thanksgiving dinner, I was like, okay, I am going to read this book. And he had actually brought it with him in hopes that, you know, one of his family members, someone would read it. Yep. Yeah, it turned out to be me, his own wife. And on the flight back home, I read the book and I was just so angry. I was completely angry at the fact that
Hey, really quick, I want to annoy the hell out of you with a quick little break to just remind you that we have to share the signal within the noise, because the algorithms hate truth. The algorithm hates truth. So we have to do all that we can to spread the signal. The faster we do that, the quicker change comes to the world. We need to be the change we seek to be. What are we doing? What am I doing? What are you doing to build a future? Also, if you want a written version of a lot of what we do here, please go to the description and find the link to our blog, our Substack, as well as you will see many links to either the work or the companies, the places you can find all the playable characters here that we talk to and how you can connect with them. So now back to the show. Thank you.
I did not know how money worked or what money was, money compared to currency. Number two, I found out that night that I was being stolen from. All of the hard work that I had put on my prior job, all of my savings were melting away like Sailor coins. And that was just completely devastating to me when I was kind of going through the history of money and what's going on, because in my head, I had my own goals and dreams. My biggest goal for the longest time was to become a mother, become a wife, and start my own family. And so when I started to realize as I read the book that, that money really isn't going to go that far if I just keep it in a savings account, I saw my dream just going away, farther away. And that made me really upset and really sad. But then when I found out, kind of at the end, that's when he talks about Bitcoin and the solution. And that's when I was just like, I'm just as hyped as my husband. This is what I have to put all of my money in. Let's go. It wasn't like, oh, let me just allocate some of this and some of that. I saw Bitcoin as a life raft right there and then. So I told my husband, why didn't you tell me about this sooner? Right? Like I would have put money back in April. I wouldn't have waited until the end of 2020. And so that's how I got orange pilled. And then I saw he was on Twitter a lot. So then I started to go on Twitter. And I was just so excited about my journey that I wanted to interact with as many people as I could. So I would go on the YouTube podcasts that were on at the time. Toxic Happy Hour was one of them, where it was just like 10 people just hanging out there. A random girl comes in the chat and everyone's like, what the heck?
Like, whoa.
Freaking out, right? Yeah. What? Are you on the right channel? And so I would hang out with them there. Then I would just find other podcasts and just interact as much as I could, not knowing who was who in the ecosystem. I thought Brady Swenson was the owner of Swan just because the last names were so I had no idea Corey Clipston existed, nothing.
That's so funny.
My husband and I became a huge fan of Citizen Bitcoin as well. So, following Brady, and one day I saw that he posted a TikTok. That's when TikTok was becoming a huge thing and everyone's trying to figure out, okay, what can I do so I can reach more people? He posted a TikTok and I didn't really like that TikTok. I thought it was just not going to do well at all on TikTok. So naive me just goes into the comments and goes, hey, you should try this, 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 and this. It will probably work better. And then I started posting my own Bitcoin TikTok videos on Twitter, and they started to blow up, which I did not expect at all. It was just silly little videos kind of showing my journey and how since I got in Twitter, I said, I'm not going to do anything when it comes to crypto. I'm just going to focus on Bitcoin. I set that straight. And then eventually my account was 68 followers, and then it grew to 10,000 followers really fast. This was all in like a month. Kind of. Wow. It all happened really fast. I was starting to get asked.
What time period was this?
This was December 2020.
Wow.
So this was just
right in the run.
Right, yeah. And right after I had gotten orange pilled. So it's not like I was a genius when it came to Bitcoin. I still had so much to learn, but I was just so excited, right? And so Brady ended up contacting me with another Swan, and they said, hey, would you like to, kind of collaborate on videos? And I told them, I am new. I know the basics, 21 million, scarcity, that I just need to start buying Bitcoin. I know the most basic things. And they said, well, that's great, because we need a fresh mind. Since we've been down the rabbit hole for so long, we need someone to just come in and kind of give a fresh perspective. And I didn't have a job at the time, so I said, heck yeah, let's do it. And then that's how I became a Swan unofficially. And in February, they asked me, hey, are you available to do social media full time? And I said yes, and still learning, right? Still not even 6 months in my Bitcoin journey, and I'm already working with Swan. So it was a very small team at the time. I would go into these meetings just thinking, this is insane. I did have social media experience in the past because I worked at a brand agency. So whatever I learned there, I tried to apply with this role, and I just can't believe I'm still here. Like it's still a dream, like thinking about it and talking about this story, how someone who knew nothing about Bitcoin just happened to pop in, really excited, posted videos. Yes, they were cringe, it doesn't matter, but it just made people really excited. and it worked.
Wow.
And now I'm here, and it's been an amazing journey. It's been
Wow.
crazy and amazing.
That is so cool. I'm just, that's such an amazing story. It's so much deeper than I even realized. Like I'm stunned at that story and like the rapid ascent of like you said, like being orange pilled, and then all of a sudden you're within 6 months, you're working at Swan. And it's just like, that's wild. That is absolutely wild. But it just goes to show that, you know, like you can do anything, right? Anyone can do anything. And it doesn't have to take 100 years or 10 years. Like things can just happen if you're in the right place, right time, and following your intuition, following God's path for you. I mean, like that is so cool. What I guess what I was thinking this earlier, what primed you? Because I think there's a lot of people that might think like, well, man, you got that really quick. Like, wow, you read one book and you got it. I think there's a lot of us that again, like if you follow your own intuition, like it should be obvious to a lot of people. Like all you should need is one sailor video or read one book and you should just click with you. But like, what was your experience, I guess, in like previous or like in the past that kind of led you to being primed and ready for like, oh, I saw a couple of videos or hearing your husband talk at Thanksgiving dinner, or just seeing, you know, a couple of things or reading a book where you're just like, boom, like I got it.
Yeah, I think that's a great question. I ask myself this a lot as well. Everything happens for a reason, and I feel like everything in my life prior to Bitcoin prepared me for that moment. So I'm actually a first generation immigrant as well from Colombia. And so my whole life since I was 6, when I moved from Colombia to the US, is seeing the harsh reality of how life can be for certain people. So for immigrants, my mom came to this country super young. I have a super young mom, single mom, came to this country, working her butt off, just trying to, you know, make the sacrifice of leaving our family and our country worthwhile. And so working really hard hours. She ended up marrying, which is my dad. I consider him my dad. He raised me, seeing how hard he worked. I have 2 younger sisters. I was the oldest sister, so always setting an example to make sure, you know, I want to be the best that I can be so that they can see that, you know, they can be the best that they can be. So I also was prepped in terms of low time preference, because during my immigration journey, I couldn't travel back to Colombia for 10 years. If I traveled back to Colombia, I couldn't come back to this country and would be penalized 10 years. And so it was a waiting game for me. I couldn't go see family. My grandfather died and I couldn't go to his funeral. And so what I was living, my mom was living, and understanding at a very young age that, you know, sometimes you have to make really hard decisions, but if you wait, it's going to pay off. So my whole childhood taught me low time preference, and also the whole saving aspect for a better future came from what my parents taught me about money. Save. I knew that when I went to college, I didn't want to get into debt. So I stayed at my parents' house and did my whole university at my parents' house. And so things like that prepped me like, okay, if I wait and have patience, it's going to be worthwhile. And then with money, I just need to be careful, because like I said, my whole dream was I want to be set up to where I can be a mom and, you know, be comfortable and have a family. That was my dream. If you ask me what I wanted to be when I grew up, is I want to be a mom. I had no idea what I was doing in college. I ended up doing communications, which obviously helped me land my first job and helped me with Swan. And so because of the time that I found Bitcoin, I was just starting a family and seeing that, you know, the blindfold was taken out of my eyes with what's going on with money, and that a lot of other people don't realize that. I think that's what made it click, that, you know, I just need to study, and a lot of people haven't done the work to actually study Bitcoin and understand it. A lot of people go online and have these very, I don't know how to, ignorant comments, I guess, because they haven't really gone down the rabbit hole, which can then get people to not even look at Bitcoin. So I said, I actually want to do the work on this and understand this, but I also realized that I couldn't wait to be an expert in order to, you know, go all in, because what if I miss this opportunity? And I'm still kind of young, so I could take that type of risk where it is kind of a high risk. but I just said, you know what, let's go for it. And the low time preference helped me become a hodler. When I saw people say on Bitcoin, stack and don't sell, don't let your emotions get the best of you when you see the price really high and you want to, cash out. This is a long-term game. I said, I got this. I know about long-term games since my childhood, waiting 10 years for something amazing to happen. So that I was completely locked in and said, yes, I understand this. I'm not the smartest one. I'm going to learn from other people's mistakes. That's why I didn't even pay attention to crypto, because if I saw a lot of people losing money on this, why am I going to go down that path? Nothing makes me special where I'm smarter than they are and I'm going to get it. No, I'm just going to humble myself and just follow the people that are really here to educate others and to help build a better future, because I like the long-term game. That's always been my game.
Man, it's just such an incredible story. It goes so many ways with that. For a second, going back to that, because I was going to ask you about that. Your heritage and where your family came from. What do you think? Like, and you kind of, well, you didn't necessarily allude to this, but it made me think of this, which is kind of the financial privilege, right? The Alex Gladstein book, which I think I come back to it so much. And like you said, your comment about people being naive about money. I thought it was, number one, is fascinating. Like, that to me is like, why would you trade away your finite time on earth? The only thing that's finite, which is our time, and you're just trading it away. No one asks, like, what are you trading it for? Like, would you really trade away your finite time for infinite pieces of paper or infinite blades of grass or infinite grains of sand? Like, that's what the dollar is. It's infinite.
Mm-hmm.
So that to me is a terrible trade. And it's kind of what you're alluding to. And then you're like, I want to be an expert. That to me blows my mind, how most people don't even care. They're just like, it is what it is. They just accept it and it's fine. What would you think, like, can you see that privilege of like the Western kind of way, like from where your family or growing where you grew up, it's different, obviously. And is there that gap there where you see, you're like, man, you people just don't get it here? We were joking offline, obviously, about, English, like you people are talking English, like, what's going on? You can't talk right. And we have our own, each of us have our own family background histories with stuff like that. And like, what that gap to me as an American who's grown up here, that's so frustrating to me. Like, people they're right there and they should be getting it, but they don't, because of that privilege, or the dollar being the reserve, and it's just all this exorbitant privilege for decades. They were born with it. What is your take on that, and kind of what have you seen, just again, like these from country to country, and seeing that difference?
Yeah, it's been really frustrating, even with me talking with my family in Colombia about Bitcoin, because I feel more urgency with them than maybe with people here in America. And so it's trying to explain to them, what happened in Venezuela, our neighboring country, could also happen in Colombia. Like, no one's immune to Venezuela being one of the strongest countries in South America. I remember my uncle migrated to Venezuela from Colombia for a better job opportunity. And now you have this wave of, they completely ruined their money, and you have all of this Venezuelan immigration coming into Colombia. And so that helps spark conversations of, well, what are you going to do if something like that happens here? Because it could, like, we're not immune to it. The people in power are the people in power. They're the ones that do their agenda, not caring about what they promised you when you voted for them. And so they get it, but in their head, which is very interesting, in their head, instead of going, okay, I'm going to go from my Colombian peso to Bitcoin, in their head is, no. Colombian peso to dollar first, because the dollar is the strongest. The USA, like, Colombians are big fans of USA.
Yeah.
I wish I was born in the USA, because I want that privilege. It's true. A lot of people say that. And so I think they're still blinded by the facade of the US just being this indestructible country where nothing can go wrong in terms of money and stuff. And so that's the barrier that I'm really trying to break, because being here in the United States, I see something that's completely different, where we're actually kind of fragile. We're actually ruining our country from internally because we keep printing this money and debasing our currency. And the American dream that we migrated to here, thinking that we were coming to here, it's starting to disappear. And people don't realize that. And so I think we have a lot of privilege here that we've taken that step that we are in the dollar, and we can see that Bitcoin is something better. But people in Latin America, I feel like, are still wanting, how do I get hold of dollars? How do I buy dollars instead of going straight to Bitcoin? So the privilege here is that we can see that. We probably have a lot more savings than people down there also do. So it's easier to kind of like stack and DCA and save for our future. Whereas I feel like people in Latin America is more, no, this is not about saving for your future. First of all, because it's really hard to think about saving for your future down there to begin with. It's more of, what do I need to do to save myself in case something tragic happens, which it can. No one is immune to having tragedy happen in your country or in your jurisdiction. So I think that's where the privilege comes from. And so I actually started to do a Spanish podcast with another Swan at the time. We were trying to talk about these things in our own language. And so I feel like we're also very privileged in English with the information, with the speakers, with just how much more information is able to be received, made, and the conversation keeps flowing. There is a lot in Latin America, but I feel like in English, we're light years ahead in terms of that information. So there's a lot of work to do for sure.
And I love you said that too, because that's actually something I was going to touch on with you, which is, you have, some posts and stuff like that are in Spanish, in, we'll say, different language other than English, right? In Spanish, what have you. And I think that's, to me, like, that's so important to speak to people, meet them where they are, right? It only makes it harder when you're trying to, okay, we're going to your second language or third language or whatever it is. So I think that's huge, and you guys should continue doing that for sure. Like that is so cool, like doing a Spanish podcast, because it's just, we need more and more of that. So I love that. Man, it's just fascinating, like your story and just like where you are now. And again, it makes me think of really quick, actually, I'm gonna pause this and edit this out, but I was gonna wear for this, you have Corey made those, right? Those yes. Okay, so look at this. I was actually gonna wear this.
Oh my gosh, we were gonna match.
Yes. I almost wore it, but the reason I didn't is because I should just throw it on right now, and I'll do the rest of it like this. You know why? I'm actually going to interview him on Monday. So I was going to wear this on Monday, and I was like, am I going to wear it 2 times in a row? I guess I could.
Yeah.
That's why I didn't. I was like, and I actually changed. It's like, all right, I got to change. So
that's amazing.
Hilarious. Yeah, he's amazing. I love Corey so much. So I'm gonna talk to James Lavish on Monday, and then like right after that, I have Corey.
Ooh,
so back to back.
Those are good back to backs.
I know. So it's like, in different ends of the spectrum, kind of can touch very different things too. And this is why I haven't had anyone that can speak to such different topics like you. That's where I think the Bitcoin space. So, we've talked, we did, I remember you came on, which thank you, by the way, for the Bitcoin trading cards, little spaces we did right after Pacific Bitcoin. And that's how we got linked up, you and I, at least. And, just the work you guys did helping us. And we talk about in our company all the time at Bitcoin Trading Cards, we talk about just fun, bringing fun to things. And you guys, Pacific Bitcoin, has done a great job of that, with a lot of it to do with you. People like you at Swan, and you yourself bringing a new kind of energy and fun, and trying to bring the entertainment value, because Bitcoin can be stodgy at times. It can be very financial. There's the places for the macro and stuff like that, and that's good. but we need, we need plebs. You need the people from the bottom, that groundswell, to really change. Like you alluded to, whether it's back in Colombia or it's in Thailand or it's in America,
Mm-hmm.
you need the bottom. Politics downstream from culture, and you need the people to say, hey, politicians, we need to change things. We have to use something different. And that El Salvador is a very interesting experiment. We'll see what happens in
Mm-hmm.
Argentina, stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
But I think there's a lot of us that think that you can't just have it forced from the top. That's been the problem in a lot of ways, is things being
Yeah.
forced from the top, right? So
Yeah.
anyway, that's you get thoughts on any of that. But anyway, I wanted to get we changed. So that's
Nice.
clip it up. People are seeing it, and we're matching now. So thanks to
Yeah.
Corey, Howler's official, and bringing the
Shout
fun.
out to Corey.
Shout out to Corey, stuff like this, and which we can touch on here too, actually. So the Bitcoin trading cards, you guys helped immensely with that, and you helped with that a lot. Corey, bringing the fun, making things so accessible for kids, and then
Mm-hmm.
just people in general, men and women who are not necessarily macro people or financial people, which is most people. What can we do differently? So in saying that, what are, like, you run social media, you do stuff for Swan, helping to keep things fun, a financial company in a sense, where
Mm-hmm.
you're keeping things fun and keeping it fresh and different, which is so huge. What are you kind of seeing from your perspective when it comes to that, social media, what's working, what's not? Because you guys have a mission to getting 10 million Bitcoiners. I always think of it as a 3% from the Revolutionary War here in America, where it was 3% of people that fought, and then people started joining on once
Oh,
they
that's
started
so
winning,
cool.
which ironically is about 10 million people. So
Wow.
yeah.
I
So
did
how
not
crazy
know
is
that.
that?
That's
Yes.
awesome. Yeah. No, I think you touched on a very important point where Bitcoin is for absolutely everyone. And the reason why I'm so passionate about that message and why it's important to bring the entertainment value and just other points of view is because if it was just for macro guys that were super smart, I would have never paid attention to it. And to be honest, that was my perception when my husband was, starting his journey. And I said, this is all going over my head. And I just thought I wasn't smart enough, to be completely honest. I completely disqualified myself from looking at it more quickly. And I think that's a tragic story for a lot of people, especially when you go, I love saying this, when you go into normie world, right? So when it comes to social media, I have two worlds, the Bitcoin world and then the normie world. And this usually translates to Twitter or X is my Bitcoin world.
Mm-hmm.
And then when I go to Instagram or TikTok,
Yep.
those are the normies, right? And it's really hard to get them to look at a Michael Saylor video because they're going to say, who the heck is that? I don't care. I'm in debt. I'm never going to be able to do blah, 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 blah. And it's just the energy is just very different. We're right here, doing a revolution, and yes, we're fighting the big guys and we're not afraid and we're going to win. And then you have this other side that is so depressing. Either it's fake or it's depressing what people are showing you. It really is. And it was such a turnoff for me. I stayed away from Instagram for a really long time just because it was draining. It was just so draining. And I was addicted to the energy that I saw on Twitter. And the energy was the memers, someone that can make me laugh, but understand something that's really going on in the world. I love people that meme. Some of them are cringe. It doesn't matter. The content can be cringe, but it can make you laugh and you're able to connect with it. And then I would go on Instagram and it's all fake. It's just, and that's what the fiat world is. It's a fake world. So it makes you understand so much of what's going on and what the fiat world is feeding us. And so I, in the beginning, would try to post Bitcoin stuff on my Instagram feed. No one gives a crap. The people that would give a crap would be the scammers asking me how my trade is going, or, some crypto bro that's like trying to tell me about another coin. Those are the only people that interacted with my Bitcoin posts back in the day. And so when you talk about bringing entertainment value or trying to reach other people, I think it's incredibly important because, like you said, we have to meet them at their needs, at their language, and try to bring them over. So that's something that I've been really thinking about when it comes to social media. What can what can I do in order to kind of reach that audience? What can I do to reach moms or women? So I'm just going to share with you, anyone can take this idea. I don't care if anyone else does it first, any woman does it first, but a simple get ready with me while I talk about our crappy monetary system. So a get ready with me video is just girls like putting on their makeup and then just talking about stuff. And people are there, you know, they like to watch that stuff. I love to watch that stuff.
Yes.
Do a cooking tutorial, and while you're doing a cooking tutorial, talk about how they're stealing from us and inflation sucks, and you know, like make relatable content like that, where you don't really have to be talking about Bitcoin, but more talk about the problem and talk about how they can identify with you, like, it sucks. I had money in a savings account and it's losing value. And then someone else can be like, wait, I have money in my savings account and it's also losing value. And so it's just kind of like, you know, going fishing and seeing what you catch and who's actually going to pay attention. So I love Bitcoin content. It's absolutely amazing. I feel like we're catering to people that already get it, but this other weird concepts that I'm talking to you about are the ones where we kind of have to start doing in order to gather more people to come in and cast our net so we can see who else we can fish in. And then they'll be interested in the Bitcoin content, because if we're just trying to show the Michael Saylor videos, they're going to be like, you guys are really nuts. You guys really are a cult, blah, 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 whatever they want to say about us, and then not pay attention. So we just have to be strategic about how we reel them in and get them interested.
Well, yes, it's so well said. And it's, you know, the space is obviously, you know, just naturally, and that's kind of the demographic where it's 90% men and 10% women, the Bitcoin space. And that's, you know, I don't know if I'd say it's a problem of the space, but it's a reality that we have to deal with. And that's where I think women do such a good job of telling the story and reaching and casting a larger net, because there's better listeners. You know, they take the pulse of things better and they do that, where men are generally kind of like, I'm just going to beat you over the head. Like this is what I said, and this is what we're going to do. You know, so it's the messaging of Bitcoin. It doesn't fall on women's hands, but man, the more women that are in Bitcoin, the better, because of that. And I think that's where you're going to see things really swinging. So that's why I know myself, that's why I look forward to, I've had Michelle Weekly on a few times, and having yourself on. There's so many women in the space that, you know, really don't get enough love, quite honestly. And I'm going to make a big push going forward, actually, to get a lot more women on here, and just from kind of all different parts of the Bitcoin ecosystem and spectrum, just because I think it's huge to have that, because there's plenty of the Sailor videos, and there's plenty of the other podcasts out there that do the financial stuff and the macro stuff, which is great. We need that too, to speak to Wall Street and stuff like that. But what you're doing, man, it's so cool. And like your story too, I think is just amazing to keep sharing. That's the one thing I got from Robert Kiyosaki that I learned more than anything, was just telling your story. And people would always give him crap over the last 30 years. They're like, you don't tell us anything. You don't, you know, he's like, that's not my job. My job is to broaden your context and just tell stories. And you just tell stories over and over and over again. And it helps people kind of realize what's happening. And that's why, like, your story, I think, is so amazing to continue telling that. Obviously, you know, you look at the Bible. I mean, Jesus did the same thing. It's all stories, all parables. That's all it is. That's how people learn. So, you're just doing such an amazing job with that.
Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. And so what did you do to keep your, so like 2 years ago or 2.5 years ago that you really got orange pilled? I guess it was almost 3 years ago. I mean, basically like 3 years ago. Yeah.
I say that I'm in my junior year of,
okay,
of Bitcoin.
Yes, you're right. You're in the Sailor timeline, right? So like you're on the Sailor timeline, and you guys are in your junior. What have you done though? Because like you can speak to Bitcoin so well, and like you said, you're like, I didn't have the experience, like you're on Wall Street before that or some big financial guru, but you can speak about Bitcoin so well and know it, and it's obviously such a core part of you and just your filter of way you see the world through. What have you done over the last 2 to 3 years or 2.5 years since you started working at Swan to really keep your Bitcoin knowledge leveling up as after you got orange pilled?
Yeah, so I think I've been so blessed and spoiled with just the quality of people that work at Swan, because they're all just brilliant minds, absolutely brilliant minds from completely different angles. So one of my favorite Bitcoiners is Brandon Quittem. And when I read his whole thesis on mushrooms and Bitcoin, I was just like, that's another rabbit hole where it's just like, okay, I'm going down this
Yeah.
rabbit hole. I think it's freaking amazing how you can apply to anything in life. Brady Swenson, I adore him just because he gave me the opportunity. And like I said, I was a huge fan of his podcast. And the reason I loved his podcast so much is because it was just Bitcoiners sharing their story of how they got orange pilled. And it just really helped you feel very connected to a community and helped you think, okay, I'm not by myself, which is what you're doing now. And I find absolutely amazing. We need more of these. And
Yes.
so
That's
Corey
why you need to do
Klippson,
yours. You need to get the
yeah.
Spanish pod going. That has to happen.
Yes, I told myself, okay, after I have my baby and I have, just kind of like a routine, I need to start
Yep.
going back and doing that type of work
Absolutely.
because I absolutely love it. And so just being around all of these people, Gigi, I don't know if you know Gigi,
Yeah.
but
Oh yeah.
Gigi
So good.
worked at Swan at the time. And so I was just exposed to so many amazing minds and their work and just, taking it in. It was my job to start understanding because foolish of me if I worked at Swan, did social, and then started talking about another crypto, like fired, So I definitely had to do my homework. And something else that I did is whatever opportunity that came to me in order to experience Bitcoin in real life, I would take it. So
That's cool.
that's why like going to conferences, super important. That's why I'm super passionate about Pacific Bitcoin as well, because you realize that this is not just a place where you're going to hang out. This is a place where your life trajectory can change completely and you can meet people that can change your life completely. Bitcoin trading cards is an amazing example of that, just how, they came to Pacific Bitcoin and oh my gosh, the community that has been created is absolutely amazing. I absolutely love that. Going down to El Salvador, I've been able to go down to El Salvador a couple of times. Been invited.
Nice.
I was actually invited to the first Adopting Bitcoin,
Mm.
which I was able to host a panel in Spanish
Wow.
about Bitcoin in Latin America. So that was really cool. And then being able to go to El Sonte and just see what people are talking about. It's so different to see it on social media, but then to actually experience it is mind blowing. I always
Wow.
say they've been living in the future. It's absolutely amazing. And then the second time I got to go to El Salvador, so get involved with projects. The second time I was invited to help the My First Bitcoin group of high schoolers graduate in order to get their Bitcoin diploma. So a bunch of Bitcoiners were invited to do the final exam for these kids, help facilitate the final exam to see how much they understood Bitcoin. Do you know what a transaction is? Can you send a transaction from this wallet to this wallet? Can you back up your keys? Can you recover a wallet? And sitting down with high schoolers from El Salvador, going through this exam, to them it was piece of cake, which was mind-blowing, right? You're nervous for them. You're like, I want them to pass. I'll do whatever it takes so you guys, to help you pass. But the fact that they just got it, and then the conversations they would have with you afterwards about how focused they are in their future, a country that necessarily had no future because of all of the violence and corruption that was going on. The fact that kids are talking about their future and planning for it, that to me was just amazing. Like, what we're doing here is absolutely amazing, and people don't realize the impact that it has. And I want that for every single high school kid in the world because they're our future. So investing in projects like that really help you understand not only the technical of Bitcoin, but the culture, what's going on, what the needs are for other certain types of projects, and just how you can collaborate with other Bitcoiners on these amazing efforts that are happening right now. So take advantage of the people around you, make friends on the internet, because those friends are the ones you're going to value a lot. And when you get to meet them in person, it's amazing. Go to in-person conferences. You're always going to learn. You don't necessarily need to be watching the panel, but just the interactions you have with people there are going to give you so many golden nuggets that you can use in your personal journey and help share it with other Bitcoiners. And, just don't get tired of Bitcoin and talking about it. And it's a lifestyle. I see it as a complete lifestyle. I see Pacific Bitcoin as a lifestyle. I just see it as a, this is what I embody and the light that I want to share with the rest of the world, because I feel like everyone deserves it. And we desperately need something that's brighter than this doom fiat world that a lot of people currently live in right now.
Man, so well said. What in community, you touched on this too, like the in-person conferences, like Unconfiscatable coming up, going to Vegas next week. Are you going?
No, not this time.
Bummer.
But yeah.
But it's so huge. Pacific Bitcoin, the Bitcoin magazine there's Unconfiscatable, BitBlock Boom. There's all these to go. There's so many to go to all across the world. All the events in El Salvador, and hopefully in Argentina, it just spreads, right? But it's the most important thing, is community is the number one thing in any survival situation. Like you said, trying to survive, if any of us, any life form on Earth is surviving. You're in survival mode on Earth. And then you break it down and you look at this fiat world, you're trying to survive. And community is the number one thing in a survival situation. It's not Bitcoin or gold or silver or firearms or water or whatever. It's community, because then your community can pick you up if you're lacking something, which we all will be in a survival situation. You're lacking something, your community can pick you up. So I think you touched on something there that's near and dear to my heart, because it's so important to build that community digitally and then in person, and those things can both lead to each other as well, obviously. So that is so huge. In order to do those things, what have you found, like whether it's on TikTok and talking about building this army of people and building the 10 million or building the 3% of people, the Bitcoiners, the intransigent minority to really move the chains here? What have you found, just social media wise, that people can kind of impart if there are content creators, things that, we're doing on podcasts or what have you, but what have you found that's worked in social to really build up your followings over the last 3 years that people can use to maybe a little tip or trick to help people employ to again, build that culture, that movement?
Yeah, I think the number one thing is just start and do it. I don't care what it is. I don't care if it's cringy TikTok videos, because that's how my journey started. I don't care if it's more of something long form. I don't care if it's just you posting AI images with words of wisdom when it comes to Bitcoin. Just start sharing the message however you feel comfortable, and don't wait for somebody else to do it, because you're probably the person that everyone's waiting for to start. And something else that's super important is, like, something I've heard is, oh, there's too many Bitcoin podcasts. No, there isn't. We need way more Bitcoin podcasts, because my audience, and my audience may be different from your audience. And, we may all be sharing the same stories, but I may have a different reach than you. And so we can't discount that, oh, there's already enough. No, there isn't enough. We need to keep this movement going and alive, and that's how we keep it alive. So just start creating and start talking. And it may seem like no one's watching you, but it was crazy when I started doing my videos, which were so silly. I'll have to share them with you sometimes if you haven't seen them.
Absolutely.
But I started sharing those, and it was intimidating for me, because I didn't know as much as the people did, but I was putting myself out there. And sometimes I would talk to my husband and be like, oh man, this is intimidating. This is very intimidating. I love it, but it's very intimidating. Some of the messages I would get are just kind of like, oh, this girl's gonna start shilling, blah 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 blah. She's like some crypto chick that's just gonna scam people. And in my head, I'm like, oh my God, no,
I think I'm Kim Kardashian.
Something like that. Like, no, I'm not here for that. I'm here for a different purpose. And so you would think, the demons inside your head, oh, you should just stop doing it, whatever. But then I would get messages from other Bitcoiners, other women that would say, oh my gosh, thank you so much for speaking up, because I find it completely intimidating to speak up. So I find a voice through your voice, something like that.
Wow.
And that to me was just, and I still talk, the girl that messaged me, you probably know her. I'm gonna say who it is. Alani. Yeah, she was like one of the first women I interacted with, and I love her energy, such a beautiful soul. Yes. And she gave me so much fuel with her little messages that I was just like, you know what, screw it, I'm gonna keep going, doing whatever it is that I'm doing. Yeah. And yeah, it just helped me to keep doing what I was doing and encouraged me to learn. So if you have someone that you really love that has made an impact in your life, just a little message can brighten up their day and like change their trajectory with what they're doing. So even if you're not creating, just support the people that are creating content, because without supporters, there really isn't a reason to do any of it. So I think it goes like that on social media. Like if you're putting your stuff out there, just keep doing it. You will find your audience. And if you are just not the person, or not a creator, and that's not your calling can be to just continue to support and share and, just get more eyeballs and whatever it is that you love. So that's the power of social media. Social media in itself is just connecting with people, connecting ideas. And if you're doing that with 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 people, that's going to multiply. That's something that our brains aren't able to register. When you see a video has 1,000 views, it's like, imagine yourself standing with an audience of 1,000 people watching you. Like your mind doesn't, it's really hard to kind of put that into context, but that's actually what's happening, is so many people are watching you, and it all starts with just a couple of 5 people sharing your stuff. So this has so much power, and we just need a lot more voices to continue beating this same drum. And yeah, I'm super optimistic that we're going to get amazing creators and more things that are going to help us with this message.
Yeah, that's such a great again, that's near and dear to my heart as well, because that's the thing I feel like, where it's just you're trying to create the adoption, tell different stories, have 10,000 more content creators out there, 10,000 more podcasts. We need to overwhelm the system. And like, I love your idea about getting ready and talking about the like Bitcoin trading cards. We talk about, making things fun and easy that normally make you want to cry, like that's kind of like the official, unofficial, like motto of the company. Yeah. Or like mission of the company, like make these, you're incepting it in people's minds, making things fun. And like, you realize, oh, I'm like learning actual things, but usually no one wants to talk about any of this, right? Like they know it's important in their life, but no one wants to talk about it. And that's why your idea of like getting creative, of getting ready and like talking about serious issues or talking about Bitcoin or whatever it is. You're getting ready in the morning, or you're putting on your makeup, and you guys are, could be doing a podcast together. You could be interviewing someone and doing it together or whatever. That stuff's a genius. And that's where I think people say that, and they're like, there's too many of these. It's because they're all the same. And I've thought about that a lot too, of like, yeah, I don't want the same thing necessarily. That's why we talked about women. I think there needs to be a lot more women out there, and people sharing their stories. Like you mentioned with Brady, like people just sharing their stories in general, instead of just so much current event material, I think is a really good change. What are you working on right now that you're excited about? Is it a lot of just social media stuff? Is there a project or something that you or maybe it could be you, I guess, personally, or it was Swan that you're kind of really excited about right now? I know Pacific Bitcoin's a big one. That's now 11 months away. So it's, you maybe got a little time there, but what are you working on right now that you're excited about?
So yeah, definitely Pacific Bitcoin, because even though it's 11 months away, it's just that fire of, oh my gosh, I can't wait for it to happen and get together with everyone and see how everything has just grown. So definitely have my mind there a lot. And something that I've been thinking about personally to start, like I said, I want to get back on being in front of the camera, even though it's super uncomfortable for me. Like it's fun, but it's uncomfortable. And like I said, you don't really think about when you post a video of yourself and a lot of people watch it. But I think
you wouldn't notice.
Yeah.
I mean, you wouldn't notice. You're great.
That's the thing though. It's not about me. It's about what I can be doing for the greater good. So if I'm going to look silly on camera doing videos, then that will
Taking it
be
for the
it.
team. Yeah,
Exactly.
exactly. Yes.
I'm,
I love
I'm
that.
already a mom. I'm
I
already
love that.
married. Like, it doesn't matter. My daughter can probably watch these videos later on and make fun of me. It doesn't matter. As
She'll
long
be
as I'm
thanking you
already
later. Thank you for pushing
I hope
adoption of
so.
Bitcoin. Yeah.
Yeah. So I definitely plan on doing those videos, seeing how I can cross pollinate between English and Spanish, because obviously,
Yes.
those are other gifts that I have, that I'm
Yes.
bilingual and I can communicate on both languages. And it's important to kind of cross pollinate and take the
It's
message
huge.
to completely different audiences. So a lot of work to do there. And I'm actually thinking of just like creative projects. What can I do? So since I have a daughter now, and I definitely want her to be in a world where it's just Bitcoin and she understands it at a very young age, I'm kind of getting my creative juices flowing to see what I can create for her to help her, and then maybe that can help other kids. I love kids, I love babies, and so trying to see what I can
Love that.
create there, so that it can just continue to multiply to different audiences. And kids are our future, so if they don't get it, we're kind of screwed.
You control the youth, you control the future, and
Yep.
that's again something near and dear to my heart as well. I mean, I have 4 little ones, all under 7 years old, and that's where
Oh,
I've even thought of, just like teaching them little lessons each day for 5 or 10 minutes and recording that, and a lot of it being Bitcoin focused or centric, sound money, just different principles or frameworks to live life, and kind of thought about like, okay, do I want all the kids, on video and things like that, and you kind of hey, if it's for the greater good. I mean, at the end of the day, someone's got to do stuff like that, because the big thing I've found down this journey of 7 years is there's not a lot of great children's content in general, just whether it's books, videos. I mean, there's plenty of like content, I should say, but is it wholesome? Is it fulfilling? Are we actually doing, like I was thinking of all these books, these kids books, and like so much of it is like just nonsensical. There's nothing to it. And you're like, why are we reading like a random book about nothing? And it's like, how come 1 in 10 of the books aren't like about George Washington, or they're not about Bitcoin or sound money or the failures of government or other explorers or inventors, and
mm-hmm.
like the leaders of history or whatever it is. It's like, how come so much of it is just like nonsensical? And there's a time and place for those things, but I think that's a place where you have, some things like the Tuttle Twins, and there's new versions of things coming out that are
Mm-hmm.
great, but it's such a huge open space where people are needing it now, obviously, with people seeing what's going on in schools, government run schools, things of that nature. It's more needed now more than ever. So I love that you're
Yeah.
going down that road.
Yeah. And Bitcoiners just keep having babies. There's no stopping.
It's weird how that works when you're hopeful for the future.
Yeah.
Oh
Yeah.
man.
Absolutely.
It's
Yeah. It's just like you said, it's kind of like a blank canvas where we get to design the world that we want our kids to live in. And so that's really exciting to think about. What can we create for them and for future generations so that they get it? And it's exactly like you said, why am I reading this nonsense to my kid? Like, they're not getting anything out of it. And public
we're gonna do something.
education, yeah, we have to do something.
Right.
As parents, it's our responsibility to figure out how we're going to make our kids' life better, and set them up for success. So that's like a whole different rabbit hole
Oh boy.
that we
That's
could
for
go
next time.
down.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's for next time for sure. But I love it. Anything that has to do with educating younger generations is, like Greg Foss says, for the kids. That's what it means. We literally have to save them from the burning world that
Yes.
they're growing up in right now. It's scary.
It is scary, and I think that's unfortunately like the Western culture, at least in my perspective or my opinion. A lot of it's, we're losing a lot of that culture here, and that's a whole nother rabbit hole you can go down, whether that's on purpose or not. Destroying
Mm-hmm.
culture things, whether people agree with them or not, destroying statues, like this whole culture of destroying your past and making it a blank slate again, which is, in my opinion, not a good thing, because how do you learn from the past if you've destroyed all of it and burned all of it? So,
Mm-hmm.
and I think again in like Colombia, where you know, Central America, South America, what you grew up with, you have this really tight knit family structure and culture. It's in both worlds have their pros and cons, but I mean, like, I think that the familial unit, the nuclear family, the generational family, we've lost a lot of that. You know, the Western world has
Mhm.
pushed a lot of that out into this, you know, we're gonna be secular. And it's just like, you know, and so we've lost a lot of that, unfortunately. And it's huge. You control, like you were saying, you control the youth, you control the future. What and there's something else I was going to ask you, but I forget what it was. But the other thing I wanted to ask you quick, and I know we coming up on an hour here, but what you had another post about being in the Matrix, and this is why I was asking you earlier about your ascension almost just over the last like 2 or 3 years. Most people, it takes them years. I mean, some people never get it. And I was thinking of like Charlie Munger. We've had like 3 Centurions pass away just in the last like week. We had Rosalind Carter,
Crazy.
yeah, crazy Munger, and
Crazy.
Henry Kissinger. And you know, it just is make you think of legacy. That's what it was. Your kids are your legacy. Like, you can't look at Charlie Munger, you know, billions of dollars. Henry Kissinger did all kinds of stuff that, again, that's a whole different episode. He's got a sordid past, very interesting to say the least. And but they ain't taking anything with them, you know. From dust you came, to dust you shall return. And I think that once
Mhm.
people are truly understanding, that's where I was going with the familial unit too, and the nuclear family and the generational family. You know, the culture you come from gets that. Unfortunately, a lot of Americans, Westerners, you know, they just it's lost. It's just like completely lost on a lot of people. And that's the only thing you have is that legacy. So the kid stuff, and just understanding that that is your fortune. You know, like, if you
Mhm.
have kids, that is your fortune. Like, that is the greatest
Mhm.
fortune you could ever have. So anyway, it made me think of a lot of that. But the Matrix, though,
Yeah.
again, your ascension, like, it's mind blowing to me. Like, I've been studying this for 15 years, and like came out of Michigan State and graduated, was playing hockey,
Mhm.
and graduated in '09 when the great financial crisis was going on, and seeing it. And that was like, oh, dude, this is a uniparty. I was very political for like 10 years before that, literally in middle school,
Mhm.
high school, and college. And then that woke me up to be like, wow, there's a game being played. Like, the guys that I was very conservative, and it was like, you know, or you know, libertarian conservative, like, you know, Constitution and, you know, founding fathers. And then I realized the Republican side, which I thought I was a part of for a long time. Like, they're the
Yeah.
closest to that, you know, like, there was the lesser of
Yeah.
evils, I guess. And they're the closest to the Constitution. Well, then I realized, oh, they're on the same team, you know, like, this guy, they're starting the problems. And then Obama came in and finished them off, you know, and we're going to do the bailouts and then Obamacare and all this stuff. And I realized that they're on the same team, the uniparty, like George Washington warned us about, the two-party system. Don't do it.
Mhm.
And but the Matrix, in that this has been revealed to me over the last 10 years, 15 years. And you've come to these conclusions again pretty fast. Is that something like, I love your post, like, when did you get out of the Matrix? You know, like, I was 26, and I just loved it. Bitcoiners get that. But what was it? Was it just being around, you know, swans, and just kind of just this content, and also being primed from your past and your heritage growing up, that you think kind of gave this perfect concoction? Because I think everyone has like this different like formula that kind of brings that together, where they're like, the
Mhm.
epiphany hits them, like the red pill versus blue pill.
Yeah. No, I give my husband a lot of props for that moment and for the patience that he had, because I can't imagine it being reversed, where I'm the one where I'm just like figuring all of this out, and then you have your spouse that's just like, oh, cool story. That must
That's
be
tough. Yeah.
incredibly frustrating.
Yes.
Yeah, so I give him a lot of grace, and I thank him a lot for that. And I always think, God put him in my life for a reason. I knew that man was going to be my husband. And it was just
Wow.
that, if we're going to be building a life together, I want to be able to kind of lean on what you're seeing, like show me what it is that you see that I can't see yet, and just go full steam ahead, because this is what I want to for my life project, to build a life next to this man. And so that helped me a lot in terms of, okay, if I was put in this path, what's going to happen? And then getting out of the matrix, starting to see that other people were seeing the same things that I was seeing. Because to be
Yeah.
honest, ever since, like I said, ever since I was young, and maybe it was because I was living that situation of where it made me peer into adulthood a little bit more, of with the whole immigration status thing,
Hmm.
and seeing how hard my parents worked. I wasn't shielded from that, so I was able to peer. I think my thought process was very different than maybe other kids growing up, so I can tell you, like, I had amazing friends, but we didn't see eye to eye on things. I was also I grew up pretty much very religious Catholic in my Catholic faith, and
Yep,
the way
same.
that other
Yep.
people lived their lives, I was just like, that's it. I mean, I just don't agree with it. And so it was very hard to find people that kind of had the same mentality that I had or the way that I saw the world. And it really was lonely until maybe I found my husband and I saw that, he saw the world the same way that I did, knowing that we could still learn a lot from each other. But then seeing other people with the same mentality, that's when I was like completely unplugged. Like, okay, I'm not the only crazy one that thinks the way that I do. I, care about family values. I care about, seeing a brighter future. I'm very optimistic. I always have been. The fact that I saw people were focused on finding the truth about everything, to me, I was like, this is so refreshing from living the fake life that you live with other people who are just closing themselves in their little pod, wanting to see life how they want to see it, and not being brave or strong enough or having the support to like go through it and actually, view life a different way. So I think Bitcoin Twitter for it, honestly. They helped me at a time where I think a lot about, if Bitcoin hadn't come to my life, where would I be right now? Would I be at a corporate job, just selling my life for money without purpose, trying to figure things out? Would I not have my baby right now? And just thinking
Mhm.
about all those things helped me realize how much of a blessing everything is and how much of a responsibility I have, like every other Bitcoiner has, to kind of tell people like, hey, there's another way for you to live life in a more fulfilling way,
Yeah.
because there's so many different rabbit holes to go through. But if it wasn't for Bitcoin Twitter and the memers and the shit posters and like all of that, I feel like I would still be, I would have like peeked through. My husband helped me peek through, but I wouldn't have like gone full force, seeing that there's a huge group of people out there that think the same and want a better future for ourselves, for our kids, et cetera, et cetera. So that's my matrix right there, is thank you, Bitcoin Twitter.
Yeah. That's so cool. Yeah, and my story is somewhat similar to that too. Raised Catholic, but playing sports, my entire life, and playing, the highest levels of hockey. It was my sport that I played, and feeling like I didn't fit in. And I was very fortunate. I was captain of dang near all the teams I ever played on, stuff like that. It was just like lead by
Cool.
example. Yeah, and it was just like, I thought, hey, like this is, just lead by example, do the best you can, live a godly life as much as you can. None of us are perfect, but trying to uphold those standards. And you look around and, had friends in hockey, but didn't have nearly as many as I probably should have. But I always thought like I was a weird one. Like, and then I got out, and then really like years later, like getting to Bitcoin, I realized like, oh wait, was I the weird one? Like maybe I just was in the wrong world, like it was just like I wasn't of that world, right? Like from the Bible. And so really doing a lot of that maturation over the last 10 15 years as well. So it's very cool. Similar story. And a couple more before we wrap here. What does
Yeah.
your husband do now? So that's the elephant in the room now. So he was helping get into Bitcoin and everything, and he was doing commercial real estate. What is he doing now?
Oh my gosh, yeah. So he always says like he's always lived vicariously through me and through the things that I do. I always say like, he's the rock star, he's a genius. So right now he's like in a transition phase of trying to figure out what we should do in our family. He's still doing like real estate stuff right now. But it's like, if he's able to get something in Bitcoin where, he has so many talents where he can help through that. If he can find that, then I think that's probably what he'll do.
Yeah,
And it'll be a lot of fun to just kind of, because those are
that's awesome.
our dinner conversations. And when I first got into Bitcoin, that's all we talked about. Like if you look at our messages, it was like Bitcoin, Bitcoin, Bitcoin. Oh my god, did you see this happen? Blah 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 blah. Like, how's your day? It's great. Did you see what happened? Oh my gosh, we would wake up, it's like, oh my gosh, Elon tweeted about Bitcoin. Like, this is crazy. Like, that was our life.
That's
When I started
amazing.
to go down the rabbit hole, things have calmed down a little bit, but I feel like it's very fortunate to have your spouse kind of see it the same way that you see it. And so it would be amazing if he also joined. full time in Bitcoin. We'll see. We're planning stuff out to see if we can
That's so cool.
make it happen. Yeah.
That's so cool. That another weird like irony too. It's like I stopped playing hockey, then I was in real estate for 10 years. So
Really?
so then I left my brokerage and got rid of my real estate, my formal real estate team, and like I don't even know, year and a half ago, to get into Bitcoin full time. So
Wow.
I knew I had to be in this space, and so I went through that same kind of transition period the last few years. So I'm very confident he will find a place here eventually. So
I need to connect you guys so you guys can talk
yeah,
about that
absolutely.
experience. That's crazy. That's
That's so
awesome.
crazy. Dang.
Yeah.
All right, before we wrap, one more, and you don't have to talk about it if you don't want to, but the immigration stuff, kind of like way off topic, but you've gone through
Yeah.
it. It's such like a hot topic, obviously, here in the US, which I mean,
Mm-hmm.
really shouldn't be, quite honestly. But again, I think it's media politics that makes it a divisive issue, stuff like that. But what are your thoughts on just the immigration? We have laws in place, we have rules. It's like anyone's guess if those are followed. I mean, it seems like if you come in one way, you get right in. If you come in the right way, you're waiting around 10 years, or you have all these rules and stipulations, or whatever it is. It just seemingly like, why are we not following? We want people to come in the country. We're all immigrants. Newsflash to everybody. We've all been immigrants that somehow, some way or another, coming into America. So like, what just throughout the process of seeing it firsthand, what are your thoughts of that, whether it's ways to clean it up or what's being done or not being done? Like, I would love some of your candid thoughts on that if you're not opposed to it.
Yeah, absolutely. I feel like the immigration agency is just, I feel like there should be more talent in there, and it's so hard coming as an immigrant and living that whole process. It's absolutely not for everyone. I can totally understand that. I also empathize a lot with the people that come in illegal ways, because it's not like they're coming here to come to Disney World, like, oh, like,
Right.
they're coming here because there must be a situation back home where they're desperate to have to leave their home and go through a journey that can potentially kill them in
Right.
order to step foot here. So I sympathize with that a lot. It all just comes back to the whole money thing. If we had sound money in every country, just like we're seeing in
Weird.
El Salvador, yeah, there wouldn't be a need for people to have to go through those journeys. And of course, I can also see the American point of view of, well, we want to protect our borders. Not everyone can come in. That's completely understandable as well, because you don't want to just, you want to protect your home, and as a
Right.
country, like, it is your home.
Yep.
I just think it's also convoluted, and some people have more luck than others. My process took 10 years. Other people's take 2 years. Like, it just depends
Mhm.
on a case by case thing. But I just think, like I said, it just comes down to, I know if my mom would have seen that she had more opportunities back home and that she could have had more success back home, I wouldn't be here right now. I
Mhm.
would probably be back home in Colombia with my family. My story would have been very different. So I think I empathize a lot with the people that go through that, but I also understand how the systems here in place just really have no way out, and they do a really crappy job. But it's, there's just no clear path in order how to make everything happen fast and make people happy. There's a lot of work to be done, but as they say, fix the money first. I feel like if we fix that, then the whole immigration situation for a lot of people are not going to want to come here. And a lot of people don't want to separate from their families. It really
Right.
is, a lot of people is out of desperation because they
Mhm.
want a better future, and they see America as that. As I told you earlier, people in Colombia, I have uncles that are like, man, mom, they tell my grandma, man, mom, why didn't you just go to the US and have me there so I could be an American? Like, things like that. People have that mentality. So this truly is a wonderful country. Like, I love this country so much for everything that it has given me and all the opportunities. But I feel like just how I love this country, like, people deserve to love their own country the same way,
Right.
not hate it or feel like they're being oppressed and stuff. And so that's why immigration really happens. It's people trying to find a better future. And so how can you, I don't know, It's like if we
Yes.
fix the money and make everything good back at home, there's no need for that huge influx of people just coming in and then creating chaos here. And everyone deserves a better future. So everyone's just trying to figure it out. As human beings, we're just trying to figure it out.
So true. It's so true. I mean, and like you said, I mean, I think you hit the nail on the head. It's, obviously you fix the money and then you have better situation. Immigration is just being used as a political football, here in America is what it seems like, right? I mean, it just swings from one side to the other. And it's just like one person gets in and the next, it's just like violently swinging, from one side to the other, and people being used as political footballs, which immigration is not just like that. I mean, dang near every topic is like that, whether it's abortion, immigration, you could go on down the list. It's all being used as a political football to try to gain power for politicians. And the money, like you said, is the root cause of all those things. And I think that's a great way to really wrap it, I guess. We've been going for a while, a little over an hour, but we'll have to save stuff for next time too. We could talk about this forever, all this stuff. But man, just so cool. Fix the money, fix the world. Everything begins to heal, right? I mean, it's just seems so obvious, but man, oh man, thank you so much for your time. Where can people find you at and connect with you and stuff like that?
Yeah, all my socials are at Camila Campton, CamilACampton. Camila Campton. I'm obviously more active currently on Twitter, but I definitely, and keep me accountable, Brandon, I'm going to start posting other types of content in the other social platforms. So yeah, anyone have any questions, they can DM me. More than happy to talk with anyone.
And I noticed you gave us the English version for, many of the normies out there are probably hearing this, but what the real version, the real name?
Camila.
Camila. I can't even do it. I'm gonna keep practicing.
Camila. Okay.
Camila. I love it. Too cool. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you, Brandon.
Yeah, we'll definitely have to do this again soon. Like I said, I'm going to be trying to get all kinds of different people on here, just because we need different things. We need more of this, but we need different as well, and changing it up a bit. So, man, thank you. Your story is amazing. You need to share that up more. You have to do the Spanish pod and get that going. That'd be incredible. Have to do it.
I will.
I'll keep you accountable.
Absolutely.
Thank you so much.
Miss Camila Campton, just an incredible soul. As you can see, I hope you enjoyed that episode. It's something a little different that, there's so many people that say there's too many Bitcoin podcasts, there's too much going on. We obviously talked about that in the episode. And we just need different episodes. We need different thoughts and different creative. And there's so many people out there doing that, like Carlon Walker, for instance. Camila, for example, as well, just does an incredible job giving tips about what people can do to spread the message. And hopefully she will be continuing her journey with her Spanish Bitcoin podcast, which is so needed, and I know she will. And just the things that she can do and that so many of us can't do is just incredible. So I hope you enjoyed that today. Please share that out. She's just an incredible person. Obviously, it comes through how intelligent she is, but how passionate she is about Bitcoin, about freedom, liberty, and prosperity, and sound money, property rights for all people, for all 8 billion people. So please share this out, because the algorithm hates truth, and Camila's message needs to get out there. And I've been practicing her name so that I can say it better and better and better. And so we're not saying the English version, we're saying the real version. So let's all practice that. I'm practicing that. Camila, please share it out, because the algorithm hates truth, and we need to overwhelm the system with positivity. Trust but verify, question everything with boldness. This is not financial advice, it is freedom advice. And we look forward to seeing you on the next one.